I was never spanked. My dad like went like this one time to me. I don't exactly know where. Maybe my the side of my leg or something like that. And that hurt my feelings so deeply that I was like, wow, I never want to get spanked. Right?
They were like just laughing and laughing and playing and laughing. It's like shrieks and squeals. And I was just like, yo, could y'all be quiet? Like be quiet. Y'all are annoyed, like y'all annoying me. I was going off. And and then I was sitting there like, actually, that's really wonderful that they're laughing. They're accessing something I cannot access at this moment.
Hi, hi. Welcome back to the Owl Podcast. Thank you for being here today. We're talking about parenting today. Clearly, it's a really controversial topic. It gets a lot of flack. Really, I think regardless of whatever side of the spectrum you're on, I think there's a lot of judgment out there. And I want to highlight again that when we're judging, we're not being present in the moment, right? And then we're closing ourselves off to openness. So we're here to talk about just a lot of themes regarding parenting today. So I'll hand it to you.
Hmm.
Hannah.
Thanks, Magnolia. Yeah, parenting, I was just thinking like, well, why is it so controversial? And it is that judgment piece, right? There's the judgment piece and and the other piece with parenting, why it's controversial is because literally we are taught that our children are our property, right? And due to what has happened globally, colonization, enslavement, genocide, like those ideas of property and ownership means I do what I want. I do what I want to do. You can't tell me what to do with my child. And 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 that like those two things like coming up on each other, like the fact that I can be judged for what I do with my child, how I parent my child, and don't tell me what to do with my child. I think that that's what adds to the controversy of it all. And I have very strong opinions about how how we must parent in a way that builds respect between parent and child. Because I think at this point, many people are many people have the idea that like, I can do whatever I want. And I know previously we were talking about the spectrum of parenting. And if you can just let everybody know what you were talking about with the spectrum of parenting.
I said it on a whim. Let's see if I can recall it again. Okay. On one side of the spectrum, I'll use more technical terms, okay? So let's say on one side of the spectrum we have more authoritarian parenting, right? And that's a term that's used in psychology. That's more strict, harsh. Some of the words that we were using as we were preparing for this, Itiyopiya said, having kids be crushed and dominated, right? And then right here in the middle, that's authoritative parenting. So it's kind of a balance of both. And then over here on this side, we have permissive parenting. And permissive parenting is like, do what you want. Sure, that's fine. Right? Not having really structure. And so really the beauty is in the balance, of course, having some discipline, having some structure as well, and support because we need support, right? We don't know anything when we come into this world. We need guidance.
Yeah, I'm like, we don't know anything when we come into this world. This needs to be said loud. Say it again for the people in the back because I think folks have absolutely unrealistic expectation of children from the beginning. Shout out to Mary Little Brave, who we were in the a cooperative here. I was doing some grocery shopping and Mary said, think about how even when babies cry, we hold them and we go, shh, 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 don't cry, baby. Don't cry. And I was like, wow, like I never even thought about how that could that could also add to a child not being able to be in their emotions. Like those simple things. And of course, there's ways that we can soothe the baby without telling them not to cry. Hush, hush now, hush now. Even though I thought hush was always like a really sweet thing, but hush is also it's like saying, hey, like don't be in your feelings. And so for me, it's like, yes, parenting is super important because when we parent well, we create a future where folks can be with their emotions, where folks know what respect looks like, they know what trust looks like. They can be in the way of experiencing love as action.
Definitely. And parenting is the structure of society, right? It is really undervalued. I know that's a societal issue, a political issue, even about how teachers are underpaid. But really, right, who's raising the children? Because, like, whoever's forming them is forming their psychological templates, their energetic templates, whatever it is that they attract into their experiences, the way that they behave, right? Their values. And then that's going to form how people show up in the world. And then how they show up in the world, whatever they experience in childhood, if not adjusted professionally or through reading or whatever self-development, then that's going to continue to repeat cycle after cycle after cycle. So that's one is like, who is actually literally raising the children? And then there's also all these cultural myths that we must sift through as we're moving on about the world. Well, we don't have to, but I mean, there's just a lot of adverse consequences if we
Well, we
don't.
have to. We must. We must.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I mean, maybe I am just in this place of like unrealistic optimism. And maybe we need that right now. Um, when I work with clients, I'm in that place of like, this is what like I want you to be free. I want us to be free. I want to enjoy life. I want others to enjoy life. And if I'm sitting here and I'm saying, "Hey, I don't want you to enjoy your life because I'm miserable," I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem and that healing, much like parenting, is something that is done best collectively.
Absolutely. I agree. Trying to build some street cred, right? So let's just talk a little bit about where we came from. For me, I came from a place that was very low socioeconomic status. It was ghetto. I mean, it wasn't to me, it was just normal, but when I say where I'm from, people are like, "Oh, that's ghetto." And I'm like, "Okay." But right. And everyone was like an immigrant, right, from Mexico. And I saw a lot of toxicity. There's a lot of toxicity within my family and within just my environment and context, which was so starkly obvious to me that I was like, cool, let me just steer away from that and let me find other answers. Don't care how I'm gonna find them, but I'm gonna find them, right? But I mean, alcoholism was very rampant. It's like the dad was the alcoholic and kind of removed, or he was a dry alcoholic and he was removed emotionally from the family. Typical like patriarchal and machista mentality or structure, which I'm okay with. I think it can work. And I know we differ. I think it can work. You just need a lot of supports and you need a lot of conscientiousness around that. Conscientiousness, that's the most important piece. Anyhow, I think that's the main thing. And so, like, basically, yeah, there's a lot of at-risk youth, at risk for being pregnant before they wanted to be pregnant, at risk for dropping out of school, at risk for repeating the cycles and for being low income themselves, right? A lot of verbal violence, absolutely. I mean, like roasting people, which, yes, that's cultural. At the same time, like it can cross the line, you know? And it's reinforced, and it's like if you can't handle the roasting, you can't handle the roasting, then I don't know. Basically, like we're gonna oust you, we're gonna not talk to you, or just make fun of you and make it worse on you. You like have to forcefully comply, really. So that's where I came from. Went to college. I always thought there could be something different, something more comprehensive, something where people would, I don't know, collaborate, I guess. And so thankfully I went to one of the most diverse universities at the time. If not, I think it was like number one in diversity. People from all over the world, all kinds of different cultures and languages. And yeah, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, people do it different. Great. That's the streak of hope, the little mustard seed that I need to be able to continue on my trajectory. And I had excellent professors. And for whatever reason, my studies were really heavy on developmental psychology, for which I'm grateful, which I love anyways. But yeah. And then fast forward to like after I got my master's, after I graduated, and then I was at this workplace and we specialize in working with children with complex trauma, which I really wanted to master. And had the privilege of being trained in two modalities that I really love, and one is nurtured heart. And there's books on that you could like use as self-help if you're a parent or even a professional or even, yeah, like a therapist, teacher, whatever, anybody who like works with kids, right? In any capacity. And then there's nurturing parenting. And got trained by Dr. Steve Bavlik himself, which was amazing, really, especially so early on in my career. And so that shapes a lot of where I came from. I'm gonna backtrack a bit. When I was pregnant in an internship, I worked in early intervention, and that is pretty much ages 0 to 3 who are at risk for developing developmental delays and having a lot of setbacks in their life, we'll say. Right. So that was really cool because I was able to like work with like the infant side of things and be able to recognize the patterns here on the infant side, recognize the patterns here on the child side. So then I could recognize them in adulthood, right? But getting into the pre-verbal things and then like it was really heavy on teaching about how attachment was really important, right? And so we'll get into like the parents and like who gets the information and things like that historically. It's a pretty rich podcast today. We'll see where we land. So yeah. Um and then thereafter, I mean, yeah, just like really like I've been heavy on developmental theory. For me personally, I was more or less gentle parented. I was parented different from my sisters. They're like 10, 12, 15 years older than I am. So we got different parents, even though we had the same biological parents. Different developmental stages, right? Different financial
Absolutely.
stages too that my parents were in. So that matters. But yeah, I was never spanked. My dad like went like this one time to me. I don't exactly know where. Maybe my the side of my leg or something like that. And that hurt my feelings so deeply that I was like, wow, I never want to get spanked. Right. But I've always been really in touch with my emotions and yeah, there's so many layers there. Anyhow, but yeah, discipline versus punishment, you know, learning a lot of nuances like that too, period. Then finally, I'll say in working with adults and even older adults, people who were parents, not parents, had trouble forgiving their parents, right? Did forgive their parents. It's just like, it's all a mix. We have a wide audience. We have a lot of people here involved. And yeah, just the people who tend to fare better, who tend to have more resiliency, tend to have some semblance of support, some semblance of connection, right? And to me personally, that's what it boils down to. Like, it's cool if you mess up, like, I'll be here, that kind of thing. Handing it over to you, Ethiopia.
Thanks so much. I love learning those little juicy details about your life. So I I might have grown up more like your sisters, like as far as the parenting aspect. Um, I definitely, well, first off, you know, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and my dad is Jamaican. Like he came from Jamaica And you know, after some time met my mom who is from the US. My mom was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And with her parents being born and raised in the United States. And so, there's a legacy there that they're both, that are both, that is embedded in both of their nervous systems. Um, Enslavement, genocide, even the fact with my dad, he his mom left Jamaica to come to the United States and work to make money, and so just thinking about the different economies that were accessible to my grandparents and my great grandparents and how that shaped how children had to be. So I have so much compassion for my parents and how they parented me, because what did they know? And they might have done a little bit better. They might have done a little bit better. So I grew up in Brooklyn, during the crack era. It was just intense. It was an intense time, and it was normal. And it was normal. So, like, a lot of gun violence. I remember seeing like crack vials everywhere. Um, it was just like a very dangerous time in that anything could happen. Like the amount of the stuff that I saw, like people getting shot, like being on the bus and gun gunshots erupt and everybody's hitting the ground. It was just like, and I was a child. Like this is like from when I was in junior high school, I was taking the bus by myself. Well, I was saying taking it with my siblings. However, if my siblings, like sometimes we wouldn't catch up with each other. Sometimes we would, you know what I'm saying? I really did not like traveling by myself because it was that intense for me. And when I say that I'm still very sensitive, I was very sensitive as a child, is that my nervous system was reacting to so much, like constantly, like what is safe? And so anyway, so I was parented in the way of like um punishment, getting beat, like I'm getting hit with a strap, or with the hand, being yelled at. And so I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear of my parents. I had a lot of fear of the world. And um, just a little side about that, because one of the things I always like, I'm working with my clients on, and I'd let them know, I'm like, listen, the powers that be in this world want you to submit, and how submission happens is that first there must be fear. There must be fear. And so we're both clinical social workers, like that framework the of the society, right? The community and then the individual is it's paramount for me, because what I experienced was what society said I must experience, right? The foundation of what happened to me, it wasn't just my parents doing, it was something that was mirrored in my community, and also something that was instructed by society, right? Now imagine your dad, you said like it was like a little something and you were like, I don't want to get spanked. That was enough. That hurt me so much. That was enough. I don't want to get spanked. Now there's fear because you were hurt. So you must be hurt to experience fear outside of like looking at looming danger, like actual danger, right? When you're in this place of like now I'm avoiding how I can be in this world because I'm so afraid. We're in a place of submission. So for me, this is another reason why parenting is so important. So yeah, so I went through that as a child. At some point, I didn't even care about I didn't even care about getting beatings anymore. I didn't even care. And like as the lingo goes, I was a little off the chain. I didn't care about school so much. And it's not that school was kind of easy for me. I didn't care. My teachers were disrespectful. The students were disrespectful. I didn't care. I didn't want to be there. I was just like checked out. I ended up one of the things that was very helpful to me is I read a lot. I was always had my head in a book and yeah, it was like the community, people could just say anything to you. Grown men were telling me about my body as a adolescent. It was just intense and unnecessary. And so, um, I didn't expect to have children, actually, and we don't have enough time for me to go into the whole story around that. However, like when I got pregnant with my son, I was in my late 30s. And by that time, I had I had done enough work for myself to know that I wanted to parent him in a way that would be different than what I experienced. However, I had already been conditioned to something else. And like with me and my son, it was literally me having to work through what he deserved and go through an unconditioning that was in my body on how I had to respond to him, having unrealistic expectations of a 2-year-old, having unrealistic expectations of a baby that's just learning how to crawl. I mean, I had to be very real with myself. And it was one of the most difficult things was actually facing what had happened to me. And so later, I decide I'm gonna go get my master's in teaching. And I was drawn to doing stuff around exceptional children, aka special education, and working with children with behavior issues because those were the children that always got sent to me. Be I just had a way of being with children. Like, yo, like you on my level. Some people don't like to hear that because they're like, oh, I'm the adult, and it's just like, yo, children are wise. They're wise if we listen, and they're so intuitive if we can listen. Do they know everything? No. Do we know everything? No. I can't say that exactly what happened to me in my life is going to happen to my children. So I can't sit there and be like, well, I know everything because I went through this and da 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 da. There's some parallels, there's some things that can replay. Of course, I want my children to be safe, and I have to recognize that they're their own beings, and instead of even a shepherding, I'm more of an accompaniment that is paying for everything.
Having broke besties, as they say.
Yo, but that's what we sign up for, right? Like, right? Like, I'm not mad at it. I knew that this is a part of what having a child entailed. And so I do the teaching thing and I'm working with children and then I realized I didn't want to do that anymore and I went back for my master's in social work so I could do um become a therapist. And with that in mind, I learned so much about the mind and for me going that the route of somatics, learning about what trauma does to the body. It was very, very, very important to me. Um, Yet the thing that was the biggest game changer for me is when my partner Henry died. And I was in this place, it was like one day, a couple of months, maybe like let's say 3 or so months after he had died. And it left me in a very precarious situation, emotionally, financially, thereby physically, because right, there's like the physical labor that all of that puts onto your body. I remember my children were like laughing and playing, and I was in my bedroom, and I was in under the covers, like just feeling really bad, feeling really low. And um they were like just laughing and laughing and playing and laughing. It's like shrieks and squeals, and I was just like, yo, could y'all be quiet? Like be quiet. Y'all are annoyed, like y'all annoying me. Da, da, da. I was going off. And and then I was sitting there like, actually, that's really wonderful that they're laughing. They're accessing something I cannot access at this moment. Like I was like, E.T., really be careful about making them bitter with your bitterness. It's just like, be careful. And so after that, I decided to take this course in conscious parenting because I'm that type of person where it's like, I want to learn how to do something and be held accountable. I'll take a class because I'll be motivated to actually read the books. I'll be motivated to actually engage with it. And through that, it just sent me down a path of more reading, more experiences, more engagement that have has brought me to a place with my children that feels really good. It feels really good. Do I always get it right? No. I promise you, ask my children, they be like, it's just her. No, she's not getting it right all the time. Um, but getting it right most of the times. And when I say getting it right, it's like I'm in a place of connection with my children, a place of authenticity with my children. There's an honesty between us. When my son is upset with me, he comes and he lets me know he's upset. I'm not pushing him away and being like, I'm the parent and you can't talk to me that way. I'm like, yo, I'll listen. Do we always agree? No. It's it's relationship though. It's not domination. I feel complete with that.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mm.
We probably should have had a trigger warning earlier, but it happens, right? And so now this next piece, we're going to talk a little bit about some history about parenting, sociologically, culturally, in context, right? And then we'll leave with some takeaways. Our purpose here is to help you raise awareness and to help you figure out some themes. Because I think personally, like I look at things from a root cause perspective. If we could find the root, then we can pull out the root, right? And then we'll pull the weeds out and then we'll flower and blossom. So we'll head that way. Go ahead, Ethiopia.
So we are talking about the history of parenting, and I really hate when this happens. I'm gonna bring it up anyway. In Alice Miller's book, For Your Own Good, she has a quote that I'm gonna paraphrase, that the child is evil and wayward, and that the will of the child must be crushed. Otherwise, the home will be out of order. And I believe that the person that quote is taken from a book about governance that is German, and I believe it was like it's either the 15 or 1600s because I don't have the book here to remind me. Um, and as I had talked about previously, those books were the types of books that the ruling class, right, where the folks who were making the rules in society, those were the books that they were reading. And again, who was reading those books at that time, who had access and opportunity to know how to read, right? It's like that was for a specific class of people. And that specific class of people had influence, greater influence on how everyone had to be because this is how they saw the world. And so much of our parenting and our ideas of parenting come from this place of the child is wrong, the child is manipulative, the child must be dominated, the child must be crushed, their will must be crushed, they must be obedient without question. What are you asking that for? Why are don't say anything, stop crying, or and 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 it's violent. That is violence. If I never lay a hand on my child, yet when they come to talk to me, I cannot hold what they're saying emotionally, or I disregard them as beings because I'm the adult, that's violent. Violent as in there is a lack of safety. It creates harm and fear. And using harm and fear to create submission and obedience is how this whole thing works. So the history of parenting from the Western, let me be very clear on that part too, from a Western perspective is what has come down the line. And all now you'll have people say like gentle parenting, that's why I don't gentle parent. Like and have no idea what gentle parenting is. Like being gentle with how you treat your children, being in this place of like, okay, I'm going to take a breath so I can have some capacity to listen to my child, that I want them to know what respect is like, not through authority and force, by, but by through showing love as an action. That's an important part of gentle or conscious parenting. Or, I mean, there's numerous styles of parenting out now that are aligned with that. Yet instead, many of us want to hold on to what happened to us as if nothing happened to us. And maybe it's because it's too painful to actually recognize what was done to you, that it wasn't loving. And so that foundation of Western parenting that comes from this place of like break the child, dominate the child, um, and how that has trickled down into how we treat children, thereby allowing how we treat each other, right? Because if I was disrespected as a child constantly by the adults in my family, the people in community and in society, then I think it's okay to disrespect people. That's just what happens. That's just, toughen up. Stop being so soft.
Yeah, as children, I mean, whatever we're raised in contextually is what we see as normal. And then children are very much monkey see, monkey do. If they learn empathy, they're gonna be empathy. If they're attuned to, if they're kind, right, caregivers, they're gonna be kind to other people. But if they don't learn that, then they're not gonna have the skills. Because how would they know that? Because children don't just come with like a here I am, mom, dad, whatever, parents, caregivers, right? Like they don't come with that. We shape them.
We shape them.
Hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then something else that I'll mention here too is like, okay, yeah, I like that monkey see, monkey do perspective, right? Children learn and become and absorb. I like how you often say that children are sponges, I think, right? They're sponges.
Yes, that's something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, they're sponges and they absorb things. And then there's also the fact that like whatever trauma we have inside, here's how I look at it. I think there are official theories if they do exist, though I don't know their names. But I look at it as like whatever age our children are, sorry. We had trauma and we had major traumas at different ages. So however we were treated at whatever ages, whatever major experiences we had whenever we were 10, 5, 3, whatever, our children remind us of that because, like, I think our neural networks activate the physiology of those memories, etc. Especially if our children are same sex, gender, especially if they look like us. It's even like amplified that way. So that's an importance of that self-awareness, right? Of like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm really activated, even just noticing I'm so activated all the time. My physiology is activated. I'm angry, I'm frowning, I'm tense. I'm really stressed. Why does my child stress me all the time, right? It's like it's fun. Parenting can be fun, but it is also like a whole self-development exercise if you choose to. And that is so hard. To face oneself, to face one's traumas, to drop one's ego, to work through the pain. It is also extremely rewarding to see the benefits and fruits of that labor, really. And so that's a takeaway of this episode today is that self-awareness. I mean, obviously, I think if you were to go to a therapist, going to one that's trauma focused, going to one that's attachment focused, that you feel safe with, because the safety really is the biggest thing there, right? Bonus points if they have experience with parenting and things like that. And I'm losing my train of thought. You have thoughts here?
I was just thinking about what you said and how important it is that piece of self-reflection. And I'm like, yo, the stuff we've lived through, that stuff was hard. That was hard. As a child, like the things that we experienced, like the lack of connection, how much we had to dissociate to be in the world, that was hard.
Yep.
So we have a track record of overcoming hard things.
Yes, yes, yes.
We have a track record, and for me, it's like, yo, me removing the conditioning is it's not as hard as what I've already been through. When I realized how I was parented and how much of an effect it had on me, did it break my heart? It broke my heart. Yet it was the truth. And that part, it was like, well, well, all of this makes sense now because so much of the conditioning is like, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't engage, don't feel, don't. And finally, it's like, yo, I'm gonna do it. I can do it because I've done all this. I'm here.
Yeah.
And that for me is like a wonderful takeaway of what resilience actually is not for me, it's not like this being taking a whole bunch of nonsense and nonsense and nonsense and being able to bounce back from it. It's that you can synthesize what happened to you and you are alchemy.
Yes.
And we can do better by our children when we
Mm.
recognize that for ourselves.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Yes, yes. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
One of the biggest pieces of denial and dissociation that I see is like, well, I was spanked and I turned out fine. Okay. Yes, you survived. And that's wonderful, and we're grateful to have you here. And also there you have a lot of exiles within you probably, and you have a lot of levels of dissociation probably, right? The more we have, the more propensity we have toward things like addiction, violence, a lot of things like that too, right? And so, yeah, that mindfulness really helps to bring that awareness into what's going on. And so, I'll take that for example. If you were spanked, right? Or you witnessed violence, or your parents yelled and you were fine, or your dad was an alcoholic, but you were fine. I'll ask for each of those points. Like if you can reflect, journal, talk with a friend, talk with a therapist, what have you. And then ask yourself, in what ways is this true? I turned out fine. In what ways is this true? Then I turned out fine. In what ways is this not true? Right? And then I think that's going to really open the levels of the self-awareness. That's a good starting point. And then just in general, notice your patterns, right? What activates you? How do you feel in general around children? In my experience, personally, but I do translate it to the professional, is like if you hate children, if you hate babies, or you hate school age, or you hate teenagers, that's probably because you had a lot of negative things happen in your life. And so it forced you to be in denial. It forced you to be protective and dissociated, which is helpful to help you survive. And also, if you want to continue to grow, then we gotta open the doors, but at your own pace, slowly, safely. But these are just, if you wanted to go there, cool. These are some doorways. If you don't, that's okay too, right? But those are some things to notice. And then just start asking yourself questions. Build the awareness. Where did that come from? Oh, hey, I realized that I had such and such a trauma, etc. Here's how it impacted me. This is why I show up. This is why I'm defensive. This is why I'm avoidant. I'm so flighty, what have you. I'm so nervous, anxious, depressed, right? It actually started way back here at this time frame. Um, I think those are good. And then yeah, I do you have any particular we're gonna connect different resources in the episode description down below. But any other closing thoughts?
I really love the the journaling and the prompt. And I want people to think outside when you're saying like, and I'm fine. Yeah, like, yeah, I got beat and I'm fine. My parents like yelled at me and I'm fine. I want you to think outside of the context of being able to hold a job that you can show up to go to work. Like, because a lot of times when people say that they're fine, the functioning is what is defined as in society as what you must do, where you have to be able to, get up and take care of yourself and have a job. Okay. And how are your relationships? How do you hide? Can you be authentic? Are you dealing with lots of anxiety all the time? Because even though generalized anxiety disorder, or any kind of anxiety is so prevalent in our culture, it's not normal for our bodies to be in a constant state of fear. So I'd like to add that little bit. And thanks, Magnolia. I really appreciate when we have our time together.
My pleasure. Thank you too. Yes. And then I think as you start to open those things up, definitely practice the coping skills. We have an episode, we talked a little bit about coping skills, but the breathing, the going for walks, talking to people who are safe, comfort, right? It's pain. How do you soothe emotional pain? You be gentle, right? And as you continue to practice being gentle with yourself, then you're going to be able to extend it to other people, and you're going to attract other people who are gentle with you. Yeah. Thank you for watching today, and we'll see you next time.